Cloak and Dagger. This was an interesting experience. Is it comic book accurate? This time we will discuss this question. No, that's the short answer. But let me go deeper. I mean, in Hungary we only get one Cloak and Dagger story, and the characters looked no more than that. It was a 4-issue series. I mean, the international standard, 4 times 20 pages, if at all. And we got description of the characters, what are their powers, how they work. Do you recognize the characters from that here? Yes. And that's the important thing. Let me tell you how I understand, how I remember from literally decades ago when I read the story. So, Cloak and Dagger, they had some civil name they no longer used probably, were two homeless people who kids. They were literally kids who got experimented on them by the government or something. It's pretty much Stephen King's Firestarter, only with kids. And they got superpowers. They were the only survivors. As I said, Stephen King's Firestarter. If you remember the father and the dead mother story. What were their powers? I think they are young adults in the comics. Not sure. Either way, where do their costumes come from? I have no idea. I mean, Cloak has a cloak, so that's easy to explain. But Dagger has a whole of white costume. Ooh, that was hot. Anyway, uh, Dagger throws knives, daggers. Are they like in this series? Not really. I mean, they are literal daggers, light daggers, not this crystal thingy. And it's not literal daggers, but they come like a bunch out of her. And they have this, this hand protector in the center and everything. Don't know why they never function like a real dagger, so your guess is as good as mine. And they burn your sins or something like that. And the cloak has this cloak, and from it dark. He is literally a dark elemental. It's a portal to the dungeon dimension. I mean the dark dimension, where everything is just dark. It's some kind of substance, maybe semi-sentient whole dimension. Who knows? But it's just darkness there. You can touch it and stuff. No planets or that. It's just there. It's elemental plane. And he traps criminals, low-level street people in that, and they get into this dungeon dimension, and he eats their sins or their positive thoughts, and so they live through their traumas and bad behavior and consequences, whatever, and they get out, so they don't get just swallowed and disappeared, and he doesn't eat them. But actually, in a sense, he does eat them because you see, he constantly has this hunger. So Dagger has to shine her lights on him, else he has to eat people. and that's kind of traumatic and all that. And sometimes they don't show up. If I'm correct. Anyway, that's what I know from the comic book characters. There is no teleportation for Cloak, unlike in this series. In this series, uh, Dagger can do mind manipulation. It's sort of one. It seems to have some, you know, psychological limits and how it works with memories and wishes and hopes and that kind of stuff. But otherwise, it's mind manipulation, and it has this crystal-like dagger things which she can throw. She's doing it like a natural, and she kills like a bunch of people in this series. It's all for the greater good and all that, so it's absolutely fine. She's doing it from self-defense. Now, Cloak, he can either teleport, and both can use their power to Kamehameha, being throwing it. At least it looked like. Cloak is more undefined, and at the end of the series, he swallows one person, like in the comics. So that's extra bonus points. I loved it. And when they touch each other, they don't touch each other. They cannot. But when they both touch the same person, they don't just see. Dagger would see their hopes, and the Cloak would see their nightmares, so to say. While when both touch them, they can deep dive into their mind and talk and figure out things. When you watch the series, it's you understand what I'm speaking. This is kind of vague how I describe it, but it's absolutely limited and understandable within the series. Now, do we have some kind of silly villain like in the Defenders, where the Hand want to do the Black Sky, which is a super ninja who can stand against the whole army if the army only have pointy sticks, which went out of fashion like 1,000 years ago, but okay, whatever. No, strictly speaking, no, and this Roxford Corporation is a bunch of idiots, seemingly, who spare like 10 grants because that would be the cost of safety, which would prevent their $1 billion thingy blow up, and they don't spend the 10 grand. That's stupid. That's just plain stupid. Unless they have some ulterior motive we will learn about in the second season. Does this establish a second season? Maybe. The good thing is they all have their superpowers like from the beginning, and they develop it, and they solve their first case, so to say. Like the foundational psychological motivation is kind of satisfied, and for season 2, as far as I can feel it, they become superheroes, which is an interesting thing. That was what I like. Really, it was like 3 decades ago. That catched me in Cloak and Dagger. They were not your average superheroes. They were very different, and I always liked that. Is this series good? sure you want to hear just that. And it's complicated because you see, this series is slow. I'm not sure if you can call it slow burn because slow burn indicates that at the end there is a sudden escalation and a big twist or whatever, but it's not really what this here. It's mostly just slow and despite all the differences, I think when I looked at the poster, I already felt this can be something special. It was well designed. In a way, I cannot really explain. I just experience, and it is because someone really spent time developing the stories, the characters, and they made them to be each other's mirror, and they also tell you and show you symbolism, how you can understand them better, and that's literature. I don't mean like classic literature and all that kind of stupid shit that puts you to sleep. No, but I mean that it's not action heavy. It wants you to pay attention. Don't binge through this. It's not a weekly series. I think you would need like an average viewer's best experience would come from watching maybe 3 episodes a day. So it's a like 3 to 5 day watch. Every day you watch 2 or 3 episodes, depending on how much you can afford, how much you can concentrate, because it's operate on a more symbolic level. I don't mean you don't have to think big. It's just black, white, good, bad, basic, very basic stuff. Sometimes anger, mad on me to not always remember the right words, and it's really gives you a lot sitting through this. It makes you think these characters, the situations, their soul building, character building, or whatever you want to call it. And one other thing is, in the end, despite that there is this, everyone in Hollywood lives in fucking mansions, like Dagger's mom is an alcoholic who almost never has job, but they still live an oversized 2-story building just by themselves. I don't know where they have the money, because I just don't. The Cloak has a middle income, maybe upper middle income family, and they have a smaller house than Dagger's family. Family, that is that. And they are against. It's a two against the world story, but they get help. Like there is the copper lady O'Reilly, who came from New York and had a friend, Misty. So that's a connection to the Defenders. and this will be reinforced in Luke Cage season 2 because Misty mentions O'Reilly from this show. So, despite one of them being a Netflix show and this being a Hulu show, they reference each other, and that's very interesting. Now, what else we have love interest for Cloak boy, and I like that because it would have been so easy to make each other the love interest, Cloak and Dagger, but they are not, and actually the love interest is working like Vampire Diaries witch girl. This one's mother is a voodoo priestess. She doesn't really do anything really magical. She just do some cards and do some mystical exposition, world building. But I always said the world need more voodoo because voodoo is interesting and it can really add some spice to your thing. I don't want voodoo everywhere, but when it shows up, it really can add to the product, and here it does. And come to voodoo. An interesting thing is that it's an amalgamation of a lot of stuff, origin from African Americans and all that, and the Christians forced them to pray to Jesus and Mary and all that stuff, but you should know, at least as far as I know, in voodoo, you do not worship, do not pray to good spiritual forces because they are doing good. So what would be the point? You get their stuff anyway. They deal with evil entities. So, really, the Christians never understood these people. And I would so much to learn more how the voodoo practitioners, believers, relate to Jesus and Mary and all these Christian figures because they were first forced to pray to them. But voodoo never prays to the good stuff. And this is one of the, you will get from the get-go that Cloak is actually a good guy, and Dagger, who is all this shine and white, she's actually a criminal. And that's just the first basic twist, and they always swap their places and balance each other. Very interesting when you just don't just look through your eye holes, but actually pay attention. And this show sometimes annoys me, but never irritates me. And that is a fine balance to get to, and I think I like this. And when it gets to the more irritating part, they always can explain it within the show with some narration or other kind of methods, so you understand why they are doing it. What you feel regression, and you feel, well, as I said, that they are fighting against the world. Mostly, both have cases against, powers out of their reach and have to deal with the police. And this police is very much like the real one. They are lazy, corrupt, and abuse is high on their power. They love to abuse their power, kicking homeless, dragging people from the street, shooting drug drug dealers, and stealing their drugs. That's that's the police I know from real life. And puts them in a situation that puts the show into a situation what is really hard to come back from, because you are fighting against immeasurable odds. You unless you are the 1% of society, in the place of the characters and their possibilities, I don't think you could come up with a satisfying resolution for the situation. And this show does. And that is a very rare and precious thing to do. Very few story dares to do such things, and even less positive. And this is one of those. And that is why I say that if you watch this show, you come out as a bigger person. I could try to categorize it like teenage drama, superhero stuff, crime investigation series. All that would be true. But all of them together makes the show what it is. So this is one of those movie products you don't categorize at all, because it's just what it is, and what it is good. I think that's a closing word.